Greetings, adventurers! Welcome back to another of my build videos. This is for Blood Surge Necromancer. The last time we did Lucky Hit Incinerate Sorcerer. This one is a Overpower build using Blood Surge. So to give a little outline, I am going to first talk about talents, move on to Paragons, and then we will talk about aspects and some things I would recommend with some closing thoughts at the end. Everything is going to be timestamped in the description. You can go there or just literally on the time bar, click to whatever chapter you want for your viewing pleasure. So let's start with talents. This is a primarily blood build. We are not running any skeletons, but we are running the blood golem. I'll talk about the sacrifices somewhere within the talent build. So our main builder is going to be Hemorrhage. Our main spender is Blood Surge, the focus of the build. We have Blood Mist as our defensive. In my opinion, probably the best immunity in the game. Correction, probably the best defensive in the game. It heals you, it makes you immune. Because you're immune, you're unstoppable. And a little bit of a sneak peek for later, Blood Mist is actually one of the highest damaging abilities you can have. I'll explain why a little bit later. For kind of a filler, we have Corpse Tendril. It does spawn blood orbs with one of the offshoot talents. But it also is a really good CC. A 3-second CC means you can just stun them, build up your resources again, and go ham. For our ultimate, we're using Blood Wave. You could use Bone Storm. Bone Storm is probably going to be more damage, but Blood Wave is good CC. It gives us more blood orbs, which are going to be important when we talk about the Paragons. And then for our unique passive, we're going with the Blood unique passive, where it gives us the guaranteed overpower. Let's go through those abilities real quick. A little bit more in detail. Hemorrhage, we're only going to put 1 point in it. And we only want the enhanced Hemorrhage. Ideally, late game, you don't use this ability. It is there if you need it, but we're going to have some aspects that give us some pretty good resource gen. With how Essence works, you will probably likely still use it, but as you go in levels, the use is going to be diminished. We don't want to put too many points into it. If you want to, you could get the attack speed while healthy. It is an option. I went with other options, but that is your preference. For Blood Surge, guaranteed you have to get the Overpower. The guaranteed Overpower, it makes and breaks this build. You just gotta get it. Put max points into it, get the increased points from your gear, and we're all happy. Blood Mist, you could go either of the offshoots. I went with the spawning a corpse so that I have corpses on bosses. You could go the increased Fortify, but I don't think you're going to need it, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. Corpse Tendrils, again, it's a filler. It is still a nice ability. You're probably going to want to get the Blood Orbs, but if you want it to run a vulnerable damage variation in this build, you can. You could run Iron Golem and have the vulnerable thing with the Iron Golem. It is entirely up to you. I don't run it. I run Flesh Golem instead, the Blood Golem. And then for your ultimate, just max out the extra talent points. As for sacrifices, while we're on top of the golems, I went with Blood Golem, not sacrificed. I went with the healthy, gets damage reduction and increased damage. Your Blood Golem is rarely going to die, especially in the next patch when they reduce the amount of things that can damage it. It's usually at full HP, so you're usually getting that bonus. You could go the one that Makes you take less damage, but I don't think it's needed. You don't take that much damage as it is because you heal a lot with this build. You could go Iron Golem. The Slam is more CC. You can spec into that a little bit more heavy. You can also go Bone Golem. We are running the 3 points into the Spiked Armor, which gives us more Thorns. If you want to completely capitalize on your Thorns, you could run a shield with Thorns on it. You could run your pants with Thorns on it, your chest with Thorns on it. Not your neck, though. I'll tell you why in a little bit. But you could go the extra max HP for your Blood Golem and increasing the Thorns it gives you. You could also have it shed a corpse. I probably wouldn't, but it's your preference. And other important talents. Anything that generates you Fortify, because how Overpower works is it takes your maximum health, it takes your maximum Fortify, and it adds it to your damage whenever you Overpower. I personally went with 3 points into Drained Vitality and 3 points into Necrotic Carapace, so that I have the maximum amount of Fortify. That does synergize well with your Blood Mist if you have the Ghastly Blood Mist that spawns a corpse. And overall, being maximum Fortify is great. You could take talents out of one of them. I would recommend, if you are going to take talents out of one of them, take talents out of the Carapace. Because when the density gets higher, you're going to be spawning more corpses, and you don't exactly need it at max to get full Fortify. You could put it into other areas. Past that, it is mostly preference. I went for a more damage reduction build with Standalone maximum and Death's Embrace maximum. I also chose to buff my Golem as much as I could with Golem Mastery, Inspiring Leader, which gives more attack speed to your Golem, Death's Defiance, which makes your Golem take no more than 30% of its HP in a single instance, and Hellbent Commander. When you're near your Golem does more damage. You could go talents like the one that buffs your sacrifice bonuses. I also put Spiked Armor, because Thorns is basically just free damage, especially for a tank build like an Overpower build. I also went the one that spawns corpses on a lucky hit. It's just nice to have corpses, because your Corpse Central does a lot of stagger to bosses. It is absolutely amazing. You can actually see that in my Elias video. I stagger Elias pretty quickly with this build, and that's without even running the Iron Golem, which will stagger him even faster. So that's the skill tree. Move on to Paragons. These are the 4 Paragon boards I recommend. Could go more. I wouldn't recommend going less, but you could go more. I tend to like filling out my Paragons boards more, but I know a lot of guides have you get as many Paragon boards as possible so you can get as many glyphs as possible. But these are the 4 I would recommend. Well, 3, I guess you have to take the starter anyways. So speaking of the starter, I put the Golem glyph in it. I just like it when my minions deal extra damage. I am only running a Golem, but I like to see that Golem absolutely smash faces. So an extra 154% Golem damage is amazing. That's what it will be if you have it maxed. For the first board you can choose, I went with Bloodbath, which is attacks that guaranteed overpower, have an extra 50% overpower damage. You get a lot of guaranteed overpowers with this build. Your Blood Surge, guaranteed overpower every 5 Blood Surges when you're healthy, and your key passive, every 12 seconds you get a guaranteed overpower. It synergizes really well with Blood Mist. And the reason that is because if you use your key passive every 12-second one, every tick of Blood Mist will overpower. You can see it in the footage behind when I was running the Elias dungeon. I used it a lot. It is probably your best single target ability. You press it once, you're immune, and you are dealing a lot of overpower damage. You also heal from it, but you're usually at full HP anyway, so that's kind of like a side thing. In this board, I was running Territorial. This is a melee build. You run up to them, you press all your damage, they die. Making them die faster is great with the close damage that Territorial gives. You also get some damage reduction, which is great. Again, overpower builds are tank builds. For the next board, Hulking Monstrosity. This one is probably the most optional out of these. I just like my golem doing extra damage, like I said before. Having it do 60 extra damage, 60% extra damage is great. And it also makes you deal extra damage with this. If you get the additional bonus, you're going to be dealing up to 12% extra damage to people from your golem damaging them. This is one of those glyphs where you don't have to get every single intelligence node. You only need to get the plus 40, which is easy because you basically get plus 20 from getting the rare nodes. So you only need an extra 4 intelligence nodes. And then the Hulking Monstrosity board legendary is your golem has increased life and increased damage, 40% on each of those. It's just amazing. Your golem is your friend. Watching your friends succeed is always fun. And then the final board I went with is Blood Begets Blood with the dominant glyph. According to this build calculator, which I will have in the description, this glyph is giving me an extra 320% overpower. That is a good portion of the 1046% overpower damage that we have with this build if everything's perfect. It also makes enemies take more damage from you and your minions. It's kind of like the Dead Razor glyph, which was the name of the golem glyph. The second golem glyph. But I would have put that on the screen so you would have seen that. The Blood Begets Blood we get is Blood Orbs grant stacking increased damage. That's why I said things like corpse tendrils spawning orbs is great. This board also has even more increased damage for 8 seconds after getting a Blood Orb. It's just amazing. So now that we have the Paragons under wraps, let's move on to the aspects. The defensive aspects are mostly up to you. The one that I highly recommend is called Aspect of the Embalmer. Consuming a corpse has a 20 to 30% chance to spawn a Blood Orb. I just explained why Blood Orbs are good. So that is nice. I am also using the damaging an enemy grants you a barrier. Increased life is great. Or increased protection is great. It does not increase your life, so it does not increase your overpower damage. And then I'm also running Aspect of Disobedience. I know it was nerfed, but armor increase is armor increase. And the less damage we take, the more likely we're going to stay at full HP. Which is good for our damage because a lot of our stuff is while you're healthy, blah blah blah. Offensive aspects are things like, and this is the most important offensive aspect to have, you should have this on at all times, Blood Surge's Nova Echoes. The reason it's so good is because just like with the Blood Mist always overpowering, when you get the guaranteed overpower, the Echo of Blood Surge's Blood Surge Nova, a little bit of mouthful, always overpowers if the main Nova overpowers. So when you get to the 5 stacks, you hit your Blood Surge, the first one overpowers, the Echo also overpowers. A little bit less damage, but overpower damage more matters that it did overpower than anything, because you have like a base increase that you get from overpower. So it doesn't matter if it's at reduced damage. it's going to be really good. In the same vein, the aspect called Tidal Aspect, it gives you 2 additional waves on your Blood Wave. If the initial wave overpowers, Echo waves will too. It's the same thing as the Blood Surge one. The other ones are up to you. You could go a more focused Blood Mist one, where you get the one where Blood Mist does a corpse explosion, which is, I'm actually using that one. But you could also do the one where Blood Mist leaves a trail behind it. I'm not running that one, but you could. That is up to you. The other aspects that I would highly recommend are resource aspects on your rings. One of them is the dodge gives you primary resource packs. You want to have dodge chance on your pants and dodge chance on your boots to make this work, but you'll have around 26% dodge chance. So that means 26% to get 10 primary resource and ignore damage. It's just high value. The other one that I'm running is when you're at full life, Blood Orbs give you Essence. You're going to be at full life a lot. It is basically just a free 20 Essence every time you pick up a Blood Orb. You could go the one where when you heal, you get Essence, but keep in mind, overhealing does not count for that. You have to actually heal. Other than that, the rest is really up to you. Whatever you want to fit into this build, go ahead. This build is kind of just my own little creation. You can edit it as much as you want. In fact, if you don't even want to use Blood Surge, you could use this outline and put in Blood Lance. That is up to you. Some people prefer Blood Lance. I just like Blood Surge because I think it's a fun ability. The sound design is great. It looks great. It feels great. And that is good enough for me. However, if you are using Blood Surge, I am running 1 unique with this. You could run 2. They are buffing Temerity. Temerity is going to be really strong. In fact, I'm thinking about switching to Temerity, but I wanted the extra points in Blood Mist on my pants. The one that I would highly recommend, the unique, is the Death Speaker's Pendant. It not only is within the theme of a bunch of Novas, but it gives a Blood Surge to your minion. Now this is better if you're running full skeletons, which you can do with this build. I would replace Corpse Tendrils with the skeleton if you want. It is still really good with your Blood Golem. I haven't got it, so I cannot say if it works like the Echo, where if your initial Blood Surge overpowers, the Echo will. But I assume that's how it works, because it would be kind of weird if it didn't work like that. Alright, so that's all the gear. I forgot to put this in a little outline, but I'll put a little note at the beginning. But we do have to talk about the hearts, because this is Season 1. The hearts I was running, the Wrathful Heart, that cycles between attack speed, core, and basic skills restoring primary resource, and barriers. The attack speed is good, it makes you Blood Surge faster, and it makes you use your primary builder faster, so you can get resources even quicker. But the real one we want, and the one we want to focus on, is the core and basic abilities having a chance to fully restore your resource bar. When I was running this, I wasn't running it on Elias. When I was running this in the level 50 capstone dungeon, I can also link to that in the description, or I'll put a little card up here. There was a time where I got 2 procs in a row, and I casted like 10 Blood Surges in a row. It was absolutely amazing. The boss took like a quarter of his HP. The other heart is the Automatic Corpse. It is really nice if you're running the Consuming a Corpse increases core skill damage aspect. But it's also just really nice in general because it's a 3-second stun that you don't even have to press. And then if you do want to press it, you could turn it into a 6-second stun if you time it right with your own Corpse Tendril. You could replace Corpse Tendrils with Corpse Explosion. That is entirely up to you. I just like Corpse Tendril because I like how it plays better. And then the final heart that I would recommend, or at least I have in this build calculator is every blah 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 amount of resources you stun. Like I said, there's a lot of stuns in this build, and staggering boss is absolutely amazing. This is geared to possibly kill Lilith, so that's why I have so much stagger stuff in here. I like making builds to kill bosses, so sometimes my builds are lacking in the killing a bunch of packs mentality, but this build has no problem with that. In fact, it is better AoE than it is single target. So, some tips. Very quickly, your best single target ability is unironically, in my opinion. I have tested this a little bit, but I don't know how the scaling is going to work. But at level 60, which I am right now, my main single target ability is Blood Mist, because like I said, every single tick of it overpowers. I saw it overpowering for 10,000 damage a tick, and it ticks like 5 times. That's 50,000 damage for free while you're immune, and while you're healing, and while you're spawning corpses. It's just a huge increase. Some other tips: this build does have some strategy to it. It's mostly in the timing of when you hit your abilities, and it all revolves around that guaranteed overpower. If you prefer hitting your Blood Wave, that's pretty good. If you prefer hitting your Blood Surge with that guaranteed overpower, that's pretty good. I would recommend using it on the Blood Mist, but your Blood Mist isn't always up. The hierarchy, I would say, is Blood Mist, Blood Surge, Blood Wave. However, you could change out Blood Surge and Blood Wave if you have the echoing aspect, because then you'll have 3 Blood Waves to the 2 Blood Mists, or to the 2 Blood Surges. Other than that, the greatest tip I can give you is have fun. This is a build that I created to have fun with. It is not an entirely meta build, but I personally don't really like playing meta builds. I like creating my own, and I like it succeeding, because I feel a little bit more accomplishment when something I created myself is fun and is good. I am mostly making this so that you could take some of these ideas and incorporate it into your build. It's not exactly intended for you to copy it. These are more guidelines than actual rules. But that being said, number 1 rule: have fun. My name is Cynical. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, and tell me your thoughts. I would love to hear your criticisms of this build, as long as they're constructive. I would love to hear what you like about the build. That being said, I am signing off. Happy trails.